After Farrah Fawcett passed away in 2009, her Los Angeles home, a modest yet stylish Spanish-style residence in Beverly Hills, remained untouched for years. Hidden behind dense hedges and a wrought iron gate, the house sat quietly on a narrow hilltop street, just out of sight from tourists but never too far from memory. In early 2023, it was purchased by a couple from Portland, Clara and Jordan Bellamy, both in their late 30s. She was an art therapist working with trauma patients. He was a freelance documentary editor. They had saved for years to make the leap to Los Angeles, chasing both professional growth and warmer weather. The listing didn't mention that the house had belonged to Fawcett, at least not up front. But when the couple asked the agent about the subtle plaque near the gate, she smiled faintly and said, yes, this was her house. To Clara, it was exciting, even poetic. She had grown up watching Charlie's Angels reruns with her mother. It's like living in a piece of American history, she told Jordan as they signed the final papers. He only nodded, half listening. He wasn't superstitious. The house was in surprisingly good shape. The old hardwood floors had a glossy finish. The Spanish tiles on the roof looked recently redone, and there was still a faint scent of incense in the master bedroom. Felt preserved, almost like someone still lived there. They moved in on a cloudy Friday. The first few days were uneventful, though a bit offbeat. Clara's keys would occasionally go missing and then turn up inside drawers she hadn't opened. At night, the pipes made a kind of tapping sound in the master bath, rhythmic and almost thoughtful. Jordan blamed the plumbing. It's an old house, he said. It has quirks. Clara agreed at first. It started with the hallway mirror. Around the second week, Clara began to notice something strange whenever she passed the antique mirror at the end of the upstairs hall. It wasn't just her reflection, there was someone else. A figure, sometimes blonde, sometimes only a blur. The first time she saw it, she turned around quickly expecting Jordan. Maybe, but she was alone. She didn't say anything for a while. She figured it was a trick of the light. Maybe an optical illusion from the tall windows. One afternoon, while Jordan was away on a shoot in Joshua Tree, Clara took a nap in the sunroom. She woke up just after 5 p.m., disoriented, the shadows long. And in the corner of the room, just where the light stopped, she saw a woman standing. Still, silent, barefoot, wearing a white robe or maybe a towel, her long golden hair dripping wet. The woman wasn't looking at Clara, she was looking out the window, toward the courtyard. Clara couldn't move. The woman whispered something so softly, it was almost inaudible. A few syllables. Then, she turned, but as soon as she did, she vanished, fading as if melting into the air. That night, Clara told Jordan everything. He listened quietly, but the next morning suggested they take a break from the house. You've been working hard. We both have. Maybe we should rent a cabin in Topanga. Get some fresh air. But Clara shook her head. We just got here, and I think she needs something. She? Jordan asked. Farrah, Clara said. Her voice trembled. I think it's her. They found it in the attic. Jordan had gone up to store some boxes and discovered an old VHS camcorder case, covered in dust, sitting beneath a tarp. Inside was a single tape labeled only with the year 1997. That night, out of morbid curiosity, he digitized the tape and loaded it onto his computer. The footage was grainy, handheld. At first, it showed what looked like a quiet beach. Then, later, a living room, their living room, only with different furniture. Farrah sat cross-legged on the rug, smiling, talking directly to someone off camera. She was mid-sentence when the tape cut. A moment of static, and then she appeared again, this time standing in front of the same hallway mirror. She looked thinner, tired. Her hands trembled. It's not just the dreams, she said. It's here all the time, in the walls. I feel it watching me. I don't think it's my mind. Jordan paused the video. Clara sat beside him, breathless. Keep watching, she whispered. The footage jumped again. This time it was night. Farrah was recording herself in the bathroom mirror. Her eyes looked sunken, as if she hadn't slept in days. She said only one thing, if you see this, don't stay. Don't stay here. The tape ended in static. After the tape, the activity escalated. They heard footsteps on the staircase when no one was walking. The scent of Farrah's old perfume, jasmine and sandalwood, would fill the room suddenly and then vanish. The bedroom closet door would open on its own every night, precisely at 2:33 a.m. Clara started drawing again, obsessively, filling her sketchbooks with portraits of Farrah's face, contorted in different expressions: grief, fear, confusion. "I don't know why I'm doing this," she said once, as tears slipped down her cheeks. "I don't even realize I'm doing it until it's done." Jordan became paranoid. He thought someone was breaking in. He installed cameras, alarms, motion lights. Nothing helped. One morning, Jordan woke up to find 5 long scratches running down the wall above their headboard, as if made by nails. He confronted Clara, but she swore she hadn't done it. That night, they slept in the guest room downstairs. By October, they knew they had to make a decision. Clara suggested something radical. Maybe she's stuck. Maybe this house is a kind of echo chamber. She died of cancer, yes. But what if her pain, her fear left something behind? Jordan reached out to a friend in post-production who also happened to be into paranormal investigations. The man, named Alex Caro, arrived with old-school equipment: EMF meters, audio recorders, dowsing rods. They spent one night recording. At 3:17 a.m. in the master bedroom, the tape recorder captured a whisper. Slowed down. Filtered. It said, "He never left." But who was he? The next day, Alex sat with them, pale and shaken. "There's something older here than Farrah," he said. "I don't think it's her who's haunting this house. I think it's what she was afraid of." That afternoon, the Bellamys left the house. They moved out within a week, putting the property back on the market with no mention of the haunting. The house now sits vacant again, silent behind its gates. A piece of old Hollywood hiding something far older. Sometimes, neighbors say they hear music playing at night, soft, distant, like a television left on in an empty room. Sometimes, they catch a glimpse of a blonde woman in the window, just before the curtains close on their own. And the mirror in the upstairs hallway? Still there, covered with a white sheet. No one wants to look into it. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The house stayed empty for nearly a year after the Bellamys left. By then, rumors had begun to circle the neighborhood again, quiet, murmured things exchanged between dog walkers and old women tending to their roses. Something about the Fawcett place being bad luck. Something about the blonde woman seen on the landing at night, gazing through the stained glass window at the cul-de-sac below, where the streetlight flickered like a dying star. The hedges had overgrown. Vines clung to the wrought iron gate like desperate fingers. And though the city remained loud and ceaseless beyond the hills, the house felt removed, like it had detached from time, drifting slowly in its own direction. In the summer of 2024, the property was leased again. This time by a man named Michael Kessler, 51 years old. A widower, literature professor. He'd recently taken a year-long sabbatical from NYU after the sudden death of his wife, Lillian, in a car accident upstate. She had been the one who believed in spirits. She kept crystals on the windowsill and saged the house every solstice. Michael, always the rational one, would sip his coffee and roll his eyes as she twirled around their living room in thick socks with a bundle of smoking herbs. But after she was gone, something shifted in him. The world no longer felt as solid as it once had. The grief hollowed him in places he didn't know could be hollowed. He started dreaming about her vivid dreams. In one, she stood in a hallway, pointing at a mirror. In another, she said only, "There's something waiting in the walls." When he saw the listing for the Beverly Hills house online, something clicked. It was irrational, but he followed the impulse. He flew out, saw the house, signed the lease within 2 days. He told himself he needed sun. He needed change. He didn't tell anyone about the dreams, or the way the house in his dream had looked exactly like this one. The day he moved in, the realtor handed him a small envelope. It had no return address, only his name in old-fashioned cursive. Inside was a key, slightly rusted. There was a note: "Do not use the mirror. If you see her, do not speak. If he speaks, do not answer." See, Michael looked up, confused. But the realtor had already turned back toward her car, her heels clicking on the tile like a metronome counting down to something unseen. The house was quiet. More than quiet, it was dense. The silence had a thickness to it, like velvet pressed against your ears. In the morning, sunlight crept across the Spanish tiles in wide golden swaths, and at night, the shadows returned in perfect precision, as if the house remembered exactly where they were supposed to fall. Michael unpacked slowly. His wife's books came first. Then her tea set, her favorite cardigan, still faintly scented like rose and clove. He kept these things around him like a barrier, like pieces of her soul that might cling to the air. He didn't touch the mirror. It was still upstairs, at the end of the hallway, covered in a clean white sheet. The fabric swayed gently, even when the air was still. He passed it every night on his way to bed. He always looked away, but it's hard not to grow curious when you're alone. Hard not to want anything to break the silence. On the 7th night, he heard humming. Soft, melodic. A woman's voice, coming from the bathroom. He stood outside the door, hand on the frame, heart drumming. Slowly, he pushed the door open. The sound stopped. Nothing was there. But the mirror was fogged over, as if someone had just stepped out of a hot shower. Michael began documenting what was happening. He placed a small digital recorder in the hallway one night, just outside the mirror. A simple test, he told himself. Not because he believed, but because he was curious. That was all. Rational curiosity. He slept badly, though. Kept waking every 2 hours. Convinced someone had whispered his name. In the morning, he listened to the recording. It was quiet for the first hour. The soft hum of the fridge downstairs. The creak of old beams settling. Then, at 2:33 a.m., a noise. Sounded like fabric being pulled. Slowly. Then a soft breath. Then, distinctly, a woman's voice. He's still here. He never leaves. The recording ended in static. Michael stared at the waveform on his laptop. He played it again, then again. Each time, the same result. He copied the file onto a thumb drive and stored it in his nightstand. That night, he dreamed of a hallway. Only this time, he was the one walking toward the mirror. And there was someone waiting on the other side. By late August, Michael moved his bed into the guest room downstairs. He couldn't sleep upstairs anymore. The floorboards outside the master creaked at night with deliberate slowness, as if someone were pacing. He kept the bedroom door closed, but sometimes it was open in the morning. Once it was shut from the inside. The guest room felt safer, but not untouched. The closet door had begun to rattle slightly after midnight, always 3 short knocks, like someone inside needed permission to come out. He recorded that too. But this time, there was nothing on the playback. No knocks, no sound. Just the sound of his own breath as he slept, shallow and quick. He started to drink before bed. He left all the lights on. He stopped walking past the upstairs hallway. And yet the mirror called to him. Not in a literal voice, not words, but a feeling. A kind of pull in the chest like grief does, like memory. One morning, he finally stood before it, the white sheet in his hands. He didn't lift it, but he touched it, and beneath the sheet he could feel warmth. Michael stopped touching the mirror. He told himself that once was enough. A moment of weakness, of grief, perhaps. But in truth, the sensation disturbed him more than anything else had. A mirror should not be warm, not when it has sat untouched in a hallway without sunlight for days, under a thick cloth, with the windows sealed against the August heat. And yet, when his fingertips brushed the sheet that cloaked it, he had felt something like breath radiating from underneath, gentle and steady, as if the mirror was not just warm, but alive. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't know anyone to tell. His few remaining friends were still in New York. They called less frequently now, their voices always kind but edged with awkwardness. There's only so much one can say to a man who wakes each morning more hollowed than the last. He took to writing notes to himself, handwritten, on yellow legal pads. Just fragments. Observations. 2:33 a.m. Bedroom door opened again. Footsteps on tile. No one visible. Smell of lilies in hallway. No flowers in house. Voice whispering. He's watching me again. The handwriting grew worse over time, curling like dry leaves in the margins. The house became quieter. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but quiet in a way that made Michael more aware of his own heartbeat. There were long stretches of stillness, days without movement or sound, as though the house was waiting. Then, one night, something changed. It was just past 3 a.m. He had been asleep, or thought he was, until the click of the hallway light woke him. He sat up quickly, heart in his throat. The light above the landing was on, flickering faintly, and the mirror still covered was different. The sheet hung loosely, no longer perfectly centered. Its bottom edge fluttered slightly, like it was caught in a soft breeze. But the air was still. Michael stood at the foot of the stairs for several minutes before gathering the courage to ascend. Each step felt like a choice. At the top, he paused before the mirror. He reached out again, this time slower, unsure. He didn't pull the sheet away. The mirror did it for him. The fabric slid downward, folding in on itself like the exhale of something tired. Beneath it, the glass was pristine, almost too clear. It didn't reflect the hallway behind him, it showed a room. A different room. It was the same dimensions as the hallway, yes. Same angle, same lighting, but it was older. Furnished. Dimly lit by candlelight. And there, at the far end, stood a woman. She was barefoot. Her robe clung to her body, damp. Her head was tilted slightly, as though listening for something. Then she turned slowly and looked directly at Michael. Her eyes were wide, uncertain. Not angry, not menacing, just afraid. She raised one hand and placed it against the inside of the mirror. Michael's breath hitched. He stared at her fingers, just inches from his own. His body didn't move, but his mind felt like it was falling deep into the glass, into the dim room on the other side. Then a voice came from behind her. Low, male, dry as a cough in a crypt. Get away from the glass. The woman flinched, vanished, and the mirror went dark, just his own reflection now, pale and shaking, lit by a hallway light that hadn't worked in months. Michael didn't sleep. He wandered the house for hours, lights on in every room, until finally around dawn he made his way back to the attic. Something had told him the first time not to linger up there, but now he couldn't stay away. Behind a stack of insulation boards and broken chairs, he found a wooden crate. Inside, old magazines, water-damaged books, and a leather-bound journal. It was Farrah's. The entries were not frequent, but they were detailed. June 5th. Slept in guest room again. The dreams are worse when I'm upstairs. I see him now, not just in reflections but in corners. Just standing. Always watching. June 8th. I thought it was the chemo. Thought maybe I was losing my grip. But no. There's something here. Not just in my mind. I hear his footsteps at night. I know his rhythm. He drags one foot. June 10th. The mirror. He lives inside the mirror. Or maybe he is the mirror. I covered it, but he can still see me. I feel it when I walk by. Pressure. Like a breath I can't take. I asked them to take it out. They said it's original to the house. Couldn't remove it without ruining the structure. June 15th. I burned sage. I prayed. I wrote letters. I begged. Nothing. It doesn't want me dead. It wants me here. The last few pages were smeared. The ink water-streaked. One phrase repeated again and again, scratched harder and harder into the paper. Don't answer him. Don't answer him. Don't. The following week brought wind. Constant, sour wind that rustled the trees though the air itself was still. The neighbors began to keep their curtains closed. One woman across the street, the one with the chihuahuas, crossed herself every time she walked past Michael's house now. A gardener quit midweek, leaving his shears on the front step. Bad place, he muttered in Spanish. Too quiet. Smells like old graves. Michael tried to maintain normalcy. He graded student essays online, watched old Criterion films in the den, drank too much coffee and then too much wine. But the house wouldn't let him forget. Every night, precisely at 2:33 a.m., the mirror's surface shimmered, and he began to see shapes, sometimes just shadows, sometimes outlines. always moving behind the glass like fish in murky water. One night, he saw something crawl up the inside of the mirror from below. It had fingers too long to be human. He didn't watch the mirror anymore. He covered it again twice, nailed the sheet to the wall. But one morning, he found the nails on the floor, neatly lined up, and the mirror uncovered. The morning Michael found the nails arranged at the foot of the mirror, he did not react. Not in the way most people would expect. There was no scream, no wide-eyed horror, no frantic packing of bags, no fleeing in the dead of night. He stood before the mirror, barefoot, bathrobe sagging around his shoulders, coffee gone cold in his hand, and stared at the white sheet that now lay perfectly folded at his feet. It was as if the house had prepared it for him, as if it wanted him to finally accept the invitation he had been dodging since he first arrived. He sat in the hallway chair across from the mirror, the same chair that had belonged to Farrah, upholstered in faded green velvet, worn in the arms and still faintly smelling of lavender talcum and dust. He stared at the mirror for nearly 20 minutes. Then he stood up, walked away, and didn't return to that part of the house for the rest of the day. That night, a framed picture fell from the wall in the den. The glass shattered. Michael crouched to clean it when he saw something strange in the image. It was an old Polaroid of the hallway, the upstairs landing, taken during one of his first days in the house when he was still cataloging its architecture and moods. But now there was a figure in the photograph. At the far end of the hallway, near the mirror, a woman, so faint she was nearly transparent, standing half-turned toward the camera, her face blurred in motion. Her hand was raised as if she had been trying to say something just as the shutter clicked. She wore a long, damp robe. Wet footprints were faintly visible across the tile. Michael stared for a long time. Then he noticed the detail that turned his stomach cold. His own reflection was in the image too. He was standing right behind her. Michael began sleeping in his car. It was safer, he told himself. Rational. He parked it across the street, angled just enough so he could see the bedroom window. At night, the lights flicked on and off by themselves. He stopped charging his phone. He stopped calling his friends. He let his beard grow in. The neighbors began whispering again, this time about him. A few homeowners association letters appeared in his mailbox about the overgrown ivy and the porch lights being on all night. He never opened them. On the 12th night sleeping in the car, Michael had a dream. He was walking through the house. Only it wasn't his house. It was older, darker. The colors were muted like a fading memory. The air smelled like scorched wood and perfume. He walked down the hallway, and every door was open except one. The mirror door. He reached for it, and as he touched the brass handle, he heard the voice again. The dry, male whisper so close to his ear it burned. She belongs to me. Michael awoke with dried blood beneath his nose and both ears ringing. On the 14th day, Michael walked back into the house. It was a Sunday morning. Still, clear. The sky above was pristine blue, and the air smelled of gardenias. Everything on the street was quiet, perfectly so. No birdsong, no wind, just the house breathing beneath his feet. He walked upstairs. The mirror was uncovered again. This time, the image inside the mirror was not a reflection of the hallway. It was the den. And sitting in the den's green chair, head bowed, was himself. He took a step back. The version of himself in the mirror raised its head. Michael froze. Something was wrong with its eyes. They were empty, not black, not shadowed, just hollow, like glass jars. He backed away again, but the mirrored version of him stood and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was long, cracked, forced. Michael turned to run, but the hallway behind him had changed. It no longer led to the stairs. It stretched longer now, impossibly long, vanishing into darkness where the sunlit landing had once been. He turned back. The mirror version of him was now walking forward from inside the glass. Step for step. Michael screamed just once and ran the only way he could. Forward. Michael Kessler disappeared in September. His car was still parked outside the house. His laptop, phone, keys, and wallet were found untouched in the den. The security camera across the street captured him walking up the front steps, barefoot, on the morning of the 8th. He was never seen again. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No struggle. The police chalked it up to a mental health break. They left it at that. 3 weeks later, the realtor who had leased the house received a padded envelope. No return address. Inside, a USB stick and a single Polaroid photo. The photo showed the upstairs hallway, lit by flickering candlelight. In the mirror's surface, a reflection. A woman in a wet robe, standing just behind a man with hollow eyes. The man was smiling. The realtor never opened the file on the USB stick. She quit her job the next day. The house still stands. Beige stucco, red tile roof, dark bronze lanterns flanking the arched doorway. A listing for the property went up quietly last month. It's empty again. The gate is rusted shut. The wind has returned. At night, from the street below, if you squint past the ivy, past the curtains, past the dust, you might see a man standing in the upstairs hallway. Not moving, just watching, waiting for someone to look back. And if you do, God help you if you answer when he speaks. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.